Um, so we'll wait a little bit for people to start coming in.
Hey guys, I see a few people on.
Yep. See, so welcome everyone. I'm going to wait a little bit for everyone to start coming in, and then we officially open the program. As you join us, let us know where you are joining us from, and then we can get started. Let me write that. So right now would be a good time to start sharing this post to our various network or social media. Please share this post, let people know about it. I'm going to go ahead and do the same. I see a few people on. Please let us know where you are joining us from. Media, please share this post, let people know about it. I'm going to go ahead and do the same. I see a few people on. Please let us know where you are joining.
I'm gonna do a shameless plug on Instagram.
Okay. I wish we can do both to Instagram.
Yeah. Okay, let me let them know. Hey guys, we're getting ready to start our let's do that over. Hey guys, just logged on to tell your story. Jump on if you want to hear more about how you can level up in your career, your salary. We're going to be talking about personal branding. Look forward to hearing your questions.
Okay, so let's see where people are coming from. Let's see the comments. Hi everyone, once again, welcome. Let us know where you're joining us from. Please go ahead and share this broadcast. Send us love, send us likes. Let us make this conversational. Please ask questions, send us comments, but importantly, we need you to please share this video to your network. If you can do that, that would be fantastic. Okay, I see more people coming in. Okay, so we have, let me go ahead and put this forward. We have Clyde Evans. Thank you, Clyde, for joining us. Let us know where you were joining us from. That would be great. Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, we're getting ready to get started. We see people already joining. It's going to be a fantastic night. Great for everyone. Awesome. Okay, so let's officially get started. So for everyone who do not know, my name is Benga Ogunjimi. I'm the author of the book, Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story and Defining Your Identity. I'm the host of this Tell Your Story Facebook Live. In this broadcast, I try to spotlight thought leaders and industry leaders and professionals in my network to share expertise and insights on how we can use the power of our story to realize or manifest our highest aspirations. And Melody is going to be joining us tonight to talk about this interesting topic, which is how to tell your story for six-figure job opportunities or deals or for a six-figure salary. We want you to all make this participatory and conversational, ask question. It's going to be an amazing time. So what I did in the book, Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story, was to challenge this paradigm when it comes to storytelling. Oftentimes, when we hear about telling one story, we have the tendency to focus so much on the past, and then we miss an opportunities to create a vision for the future. I believe that storytelling, if done in the right way, can be one's greatest asset. And also, it can be one's greatest financial resource. And whether the aspiration is getting a dream job, getting a business started, getting a publishing deal, taking your idea to the marketplace, or taking your mission around the world, storytelling can be a very great catalyst for that to happen. So I wrote that book, and what I did in the book was to extrapolate insights from my coaching community and document their transition towards their individual breakthroughs. So very shortly, I'm going to highlight someone not so much in the book, but still in my community. We're going to talk to us about our expertise as an HR professional, but also importantly, our story. She's going to talk to us about our becoming story and how she used our story to be able to change the narrative. Not only get the job of her dream, but she's now in the position of awarding people the job of their own dreams. And how that came in full circle. So what I'm going to do right now is to go ahead and read out a little bit of the bio of Melody. So our guest is Melody Burfield. And Melody Burfield, she is a business leader as well as an HR professional, expert with expertise in recruiting, employee relations, diversity, inclusion, as well as HR strategy. She currently works at the Hilton Worldwide as a Senior Workforce Management Associate for the Technology Division. Melody is responsible for strategic development of Hilton's growing technology contingent labor program. The program acts as a liaison for various internal groups looking to enhance their current workforce with contingent labor specialized in technology. Melody's background, various roles within HR, human resources field, with Hilton previously included AT&T. Melody is a graduate of James Madison University, where she majored in communications and public relations. She furthered her education at the University of Maryland, where she obtained an MBA, concentrating in human resources and global business. So this is my own introduction of Melody. My path crossed with Melody during our becoming days. I want to say during our story making days. She came out to one of my workshops in Washington, D.C., and something magical happens after that. There was this 360 shift that happened with a professional brand and trajectory, to the fact that in a couple of months after that, Melody and I started facilitating the very same workshop that she once attended in relatively few months as a participant, but as a co-presenter at the same workshop, which is called Tell Your Story. She told a story about 6 months ago in Washington, D.C., and that electrified the entire room. Oftentimes, when we talk about this model of telling your story from a forward-looking, aspirational standpoint, it becomes somewhat challenging for people to grasp the idea. But when we see proof and expressions in Melody's experience, is an opportunity for me to reach out to such an individual to help inspire more people. So Melody, thank you so much for accepting my invitation and joining us. And I was wondering if you can take us back and tell us your story, particularly your becoming story, how our path crossed and how the narrative changed.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm really looking forward to talking about my story, and hopefully it can help you in whatever position that you're in or whatever transition that you're in. It was about a year and a half ago almost. I was in a position where I was with the company for about 5 years. I'd hit my plateau. So I got to a point where it was really nowhere to go, nowhere to move up. Um, I'd done really well in my position, but I just wasn't fulfilled anymore. And I knew that at that time it was time for me to go and move on to something else. And so, like everyone else, I'd been in different roles within the company. I didn't know how to do a resume. It'd been years before I had done a resume or even interviewed for a position. And so I worked on my resume and just started sending it out to different job posts. And I never heard anything back, never got an interview, and I just couldn't figure out why. Um, and so maybe a couple months later, after about a year of applying to different positions, I found Banga's workshop online, and I was like, "Hey, let's try this out. Let's see what this is all about." And so I went to the workshop, and he talked about personal branding and how to make sure that you're leveraging social media and using different techniques like the words within positions that you're applying for, making sure that those words are in your job description and in your LinkedIn. And so I used all of the advice that he gave me. And maybe a couple weeks later, I was getting interviews and calls and messages on LinkedIn from recruiters. A few weeks later, I landed maybe 2 interviews and I ended up getting the dream job or the job that, I had always wanted while I was in that position. Some of the issues that I had was that while I was working with my previous company, I didn't have the most desirable title. And so most people would kind of overlook me because I didn't have HR manager as my title. I did everything an HR manager would do. I did employee relations, I did recruiting, I did everything that an HR manager would do, but I just didn't have that title. And so within his workshop, he talked about making sure that you are taking control of your personal brand and you're identifying yourself. Like you don't have to rely on other companies to identify you. You have to identify yourself. And so I really took that to heart, and I just rebranded my entire LinkedIn page and really made sure that I stood out as an HR expert. I started reading articles, connecting with people in HR. I studied and got my SHRM certification so that I was a professional certified HR practitioner, and made sure that I interacted with people who were in those circles. And that helped me out a lot. And it's still continuing to help me as I'm currently in my career.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. So, Melody, this is what I found out. You talked about that you've pretty much have done everything you're doing now in your previous roles, but you didn't take ownership of that. The way I say it is that you didn't give yourself permission. If you can talk to us about, just take us inside that process, your thought process of giving yourself permission. How did that show up in your new resume? How did that show up in your interview conversation when that was happening? How did that show up in your social media? Um, so tell us about your process of giving yourself permission.
Yeah, so what I did was I thought about the type of HR professional that I wanted to be and that I wanted to exist as. And then I also took inventory of everything that I've ever done that was geared around HR. And so I wrote down a list of literally everything that I've done, all of my accomplishments, anything from I had to go to court one time with an employee relations case. I hired people, I did recruiting, I fired people, I've done it all. And so I wrote those things down along with some of the accomplishments that I had too, as far as inventory management or audits or increasing in particular areas. And so I wrote down everything and took inventory of everything that I had ever did. And then I used those things to start to create my story based on the background that I had. Um, I also looked at other HR professionals on LinkedIn and other professionals that I had connected with, and I started to look to see what type of words did they use, what type of keywords did they use. In every industry, there are particular keywords or kind of jargon is what we call them, but there are particular words or responsibilities or strategies or different things that we use within the HR field. And so I started to make sure that all of those words were present on my LinkedIn and on my resume as well. And then again, just making sure that I presented myself as a subject matter expert. So anytime anything was happening in the news or in the media, I made sure that I was up to date on some of those things. I responded to articles, and I was just really present as far as social media and making sure that I was up to date with what was going on.
Wow, wow, that's very, so that's very good to know. So one of the things I advocate when people going through transition is to try to document and take inventory of the peak moments of their careers. And it's amazing what happens in that process. There is this cliche, which I believe is a valid truth and statement that you are enough. And you are enough in the context of HR and job strategy is that whatever asset or whatever skill or desired opportunity that you think you lack or you want, some form of variation of that already exists in your story. And it's your responsibility to really sit down and really look inward and take inventory of that. And you will really amaze yourself what you've done. I go ahead to say that professionals and entrepreneurs in transition really struggle to be the architect of their own personal brand and professional identity. Oftentimes, we defer that responsibility to an employer, to an industry. Oftentimes, people will say that I don't have awards, I don't have certain degree, I don't have certain experience. We tend to look external when it comes to our professional identity and our personal brand. And what I've found out these days, when it comes to identity, that we are the governing authority of our personal identity, of our spiritual identity, of our cultural identity, of our gender identity. But when it comes to our professional identity, we don't really take ownership of that. We'd rather someone else award us some form of certification or license or approval and say, you now can give yourself that permission. But what I've seen those who change the narrative are those who say, hey, I don't have to get any external validation. The only validation I need to get is for me to go through this process of taking inventory of my peak moments. However, what I found it is when it comes to making that manifest into a six-figure job, the gap often becomes how do you establish that the parallels, that how transferable those experiences are to this new role that you're going to. So two steps. So we have to take inventory. Now we get that. But what would you say, maybe someone say, all of my peak moments are in an unrelated industry or job title. How do I tell that story to this new opportunity to employer?
Yeah, it goes back to understanding the position, understanding the company, and make sure that you are able to answer the questions that they have and fix the issues that they have. So everybody has an individual expertise. Your background is not like anybody else's background. And so you always want to tell the story so that they understand why you're the best person for the job and why your experience and your experience only will fix whatever they need, and you are the solution for the issues that they have, or you have that expertise to really take their program or whatever they're doing to the next step. And so from what I've seen, that's the biggest gap, is coming in and doing your research, understanding the role, and really coming in with confidence and knowing what you're going to do to move the company or move the program or move the team to the next level.
And I was wondering if you can talk to us about what role your personal story plays in this, because one of this inevitable process of any job interview is, can you tell us about yourself? Can we meet you? You can't avoid that. whether it is a job interview, it is a loan interview, if it is a court interview, whatever it is. And I often think that is a real estate. That is a great opportunity to tell your story, because whether it is skill sets, language proficiency, academic qualifications, cultural competency, being technological savvy, there will always be someone who would have more than that. But something that is uniquely yours is your story. So, can you tell us that the role telling one story play during an interview conversation?
Yeah, I mean, telling your story makes things personal. It helps the interviewer understand you and who you are and what you believe in, and it sets you apart from everybody else. And like I said previously, you have a different story than everybody else. And so I love face-to-face interviews because you can read body language, you get a better sense of the person, and you can really make yourself stand out. And so when you're face to face with the person, it's easier to kind of understand them and understand their body language. And so, yeah, I hope I answered their question.
Yeah, I think yes, you did in some ways, because it comes to the personal aspect of things.
Mhm.
Because I think when it's an interview, there is the technical component and there is the personal component. The personal component, in my view, speaks to your values, your character, your perspective, your insight, your mindset, your thought process, things like that. Your personality, all those things embodies, your personality. And when it comes to crafting that in a narrative, one of the things I recommend, and I'd like to hear your perspective of this. I'm a big advocate when telling one stories that the most compelling story you can ever tell is your story that touches on the defining moments of your life. Whether that defining moment is when you were fired from your previous job, when you met your mentor, your life coach, when you fell in love, when you moved to a new country, when you lost someone, when you gained some new relationship. That is something that really makes it personal. So when I tell my story, I could tell my defining moment like coming to America, and that's my personal story. I want to incorporate that into the conversations I'm having. And so what I tell people to do is, so number one, we take inventory of our peak moments, our accomplishments. I also would say take inventory of those defining moments. And it is in those defining moments you try to make a parallel to, as you said, having researched this opportunity. It's like it is those defining moments. For example, I'm being interviewed as the vice president for emerging market for a technology company. And my defining moments could be when I went to Mexico or when I went to Latin America for vacation, and I realized it's an untapped market. And that really shaped my perspective in my definition of emerging markets. So I think that's a good opportunity to say that I also have an emerging market experience. It might just be a vacation, but something personal happened to me in Mexico that shaped the way I looked at emerging markets, that they are actually the one giving us opportunity in the most developed market, not the other way around. So that's what I was leaning in, like what is your perspective of incorporating those aspects, those defining personal aspects into job interview conversations?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They are very helpful in, like you said, understanding, having the interviewer understand who you are as a person, and helping them understand your passion. For me, that's what it boils down to. When I speak with someone or I interview somebody, I want to know what they're passionate about and why they want to work here and what they're so passionate about. In this particular industry or in this particular arena, like why do they want to be here? And so if you're able to tell your defining moment in a way that speaks passion, anybody's going to want to hire you, because we want passionate people who are going to do what needs to be done.
So let's speak about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Let's talk about LinkedIn. I say so. In the world of human resources, LinkedIn is a big deal. It's not just in HR. In the world of business, period, LinkedIn is a big deal. So this is the way I say it. If you think about Facebook as the playground, think about LinkedIn as the boardroom. And it's really where all the businesses happen. Most definitely, you can have high-level businesses done on a social conversation, in a social, over cocktail, over drinks. Yes, business happen. But when it comes to signing the dotted lines, when it comes to monetization, when it comes to six figures, it's always in the boardroom. It's always in the conference room when the interviews are going on, whether it's face to face. And I think LinkedIn could be a very big catalyst for that. So I want to hear your perspective, how the audience can incorporate LinkedIn in their six-figure job searching strategy.
Oh, LinkedIn is the absolute key right now. It's a free social media. If you are not on LinkedIn, then you need to be on LinkedIn. My current job that I have, my last job, I got it using LinkedIn, not because I submitted a resume online somewhere, but because someone saw my LinkedIn and they contacted me. Being in the HR field, I contact a lot of people on LinkedIn just to get to know them. We may not even have a position open yet, but I may be looking or sourcing for people on LinkedIn for positions that we're going to have coming open in the future. And so making sure that your personal brand exists on LinkedIn is very important. And also making sure, like I said before, you have those keywords for how you want to identify yourself.
And if you can tell us, take us through your own LinkedIn strategy. You talked about that. You did keyword search optimization and you looked at, give us the ABC of that. If someone who says, I have a LinkedIn account, I barely use it, I get a bunch of emails, I don't even know who's trying to reach me on email, I'm a private person. And how can they now go back to LinkedIn? What are the ABC steps they can do to position themselves as a serious six-figure ready professional?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, all it is a bunch of algorithms. And anytime you search something, you're going to search different keywords. So I'm in human resources. So a couple of keywords are like learning and development or employee relations. And so making sure that whatever your expertise, those keywords that are within your industry are highlighted on your LinkedIn, so that when someone uses search engine optimization or they're searching something, that your LinkedIn or your profile is the first that pops up. And then going back again with just the title and the identification, most people have whatever. Let's say I'm at Hilton, I'm a workforce manager. Some people will have workforce manager, but that's not who I am. That's not what I do. I strategize. I help VPs strategize their workforce, or I'm running a new program right now with contingent labor. So contingent labor is a huge piece of it. And so making sure that you're using those keywords and you are very specific and you're very niche in how you talk about yourself.
I had my very first six-figure job opportunity offered to me when I was barely just coming out of the university. I was still, I haven't graduated yet. And LinkedIn started becoming serious then. And I think I read somewhere, it was Richard Branson that said something like, if anybody offer you a job that you're not qualified for, do not argue with them. Show up for the interview, take the job, and learn on the job. So I went to LinkedIn, and this idea of telling a story that is aspirational. So I literally wrote an aspirational vision of my professional career. Like, what do I see my personal brand, Bengals, looks like in the next 5 to 10 years? Guess what I did, Melody? I took that and I put it on LinkedIn. And I look at the top industry leaders and the thought leaders. I went out, they watered their resume, their profile summary and description.
Yeah.
And I did the exact same thing. And I put this very high level, I've not even graduated, Melody. I put this high level profile on LinkedIn. And immediately I did that. Oh, there was this floodgates of recruiters. Are you available for a call, for an in-person meeting? Can we get your time? All kinds of requests started coming in, and I wouldn't respond there. And they started showing me the money. Oh, this is a 90,000 job. This is a 120,000 job. And again, I didn't even have any qualification to show for it. I was just like, okay, let's see how this thing would go. But that was a very interesting, life-changing experience, because what I realized with that, Melody, is that I do have control over my professional destiny, that I can become the architect of the type of opportunities that come to me. All this opportunity came to me not because I was the best, not because I have all those skill set, just because I give myself permission to tell some story that is aspirational. Now, it's a different conversation going into the room. If you know anything about HR, the fact that you have an opportunity to put a foot in the door, it's very important. So I think for me, it's two levels. Number one, it speaks to this idea of giving yourself permission. And the way to give yourself permission is ask yourself this question: who are you becoming? I ask the question in my coaching conversations, who are you becoming? Because identity is fluid, identity is constantly evolving. After this conversation, those on the line, you would gain perspective you didn't know before. So, and that has elevated, your perspective and understanding. So give yourself permission to go ahead and write this vision of who you are becoming. Well, at that point, that becomes your identity, becomes your professional identity. Now, this is why I said my identity is the way I see myself. My personal brand is the way you see me. Now, the skill of storytelling is how to marry both the identity and the brand, the perception and the reality. How to marry both is the really core of storytelling. Now, once you have what that aspiration looks like, my next recommendation is let that translate into keywords. I'm not saying write profiles or write, text profile that, you don't have anything to back it up, or you don't even have qualification in. I'm saying write that process, internally just by yourself to help upgrade your vocabulary, the language in which you're marketing or telling your story with. The way that translates into technology is called keywords. So it is those keywords that ultimately makes it into LinkedIn. Now, 360 perspective, when I became a recruiter and I was sitting on the fence, on the other side of the fence, where I am the one going on LinkedIn and search for candidates and offer all these jobs, I start by putting keywords. So you might be the best search engine optimization specialist or database, or you might be the best salesperson, you might be the best in what you do. But if you don't have those keywords on your LinkedIn profile, I won't even come in contact with your profile. So those keywords are very critical, and it is in those keywords that gives you visibility. And then that is when the opportunities start coming your way. It's a whole new conversation about how to convert those conversations and to manifest them into opportunity. But at least that gets you in the door. That increases your digital footprint and presence and visibility. and more opportunities start coming your way. So, Melody, right now you occupy a very wonderful intersection of human resource and technology. And if you can speak to us about how to marry that positioning, from an HO standpoint, and how do we take that into social media to actually build out our personal brand and for monetization purposes.
I kind of fell into technology. I feel like I hear an echo in the background. But I kind of fell into technology. Like I said, I was able to get this awesome opportunity through Hilton. And one of the projects that I worked on within Hilton was the contingent labor and the technology space. And so I actually recently just got a new position within Hilton a couple of months ago. And so now I'm running a brand new program that we're starting up for contingent labor. And we are centralizing our program, and so that we are the liaison between vendors and for the contingent workforce. And so what that means for me is that I'm on the forefront of a lot of things that are coming up as far as the digital progress and the technological progress that we're having. And it's really exciting because a lot of the contractors that we're working with, they're the ones who are coming in and they have hands-on in some of the cybersecurity things. With Hilton, I don't know if you've seen the digital key now, where you can use your key in order to get into rooms. But there's a lot of exciting things that are coming up in the hospitality arena. And so I'm able to marry HR with technology, with hospitality all at the same time. And so it's been a really exciting experience, along with building something from scratch. I don't know if you guys have ever built like a program or just came into new infrastructure, but it's exciting and there's a lot of moving pieces all at once. And so it's really good to have that opportunity to come in. And right now I'm building the policy around how we will engage together. And so when we're talking about LinkedIn, back to LinkedIn, what I started doing now is I started writing down every single thing that I've done or that I'm currently doing. I started making note of that. And so as I am moving along or transitioning, or if I, want to update my LinkedIn, I can go back and say, hey, I created a policy. I've done policies and procedures, or, I've started a program from nothing. And now it's a fully functioning program where we're saving the company $4.5 million a quarter. So, yeah, wow. Those are the things. Yeah, really excited.
First, congratulations on your new role within Hilton, the elevation.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. It's amazing how all this happened just because you told a new story. And one of the reaction I typically get almost on a daily basis in this business of storytelling is people often say, when I say, we all believe it, no doubt, everyone has a story to tell. And the problem is, do we believe our own personal story is audience worthy or is worth telling? And when I ask people the question, the typical reaction is, my story is nothing. There's nothing exciting about my story. I'm just a regular person. It's nothing. And we started asking questions. Oh, tell me about yourself. Tell me about this. And they started saying all these amazing things. So what would you say to someone who might fall in that category of discounting your story? You spoke so highly of this discipline of taking inventory of every single thing. I would say peak moments, but what I'm getting is it should not just be peak moments, even the low moments as well. You have to document everything. Can you speak to us about that process and how that can help us to tell this new story?
Yeah, I like to document everything because you don't know when it will ever be useful for you. So if you're documenting everything, defining moments, low moments, or just like simple like day-to-day tasks that you're doing, so that when you are applying for jobs and they're asking you questions, you have something to look back on and you have something to speak on. And so you want to make sure that you are keeping inventory or keeping track of everything because they might be useful. I know after my 5 years of being with my previous company and I was going back into looking for new jobs, I had a really difficult time at first interviewing or even doing my resume because I was like, man, what have I done? What have I done? And so I actually took some time to really, really dig in deep to really figure out, okay, every little thing of what I did, I thought about it and I wrote it down so that when I went in for the interview, I was more prepared and I could create a story around the past, my past, or around what I did before.
Wow. Wow. So, guys, I want you to let us know how this content resonates. Please feel free to ask us questions, highlight what is resonating with you, what you want us to talk about, how you think this can be applicable to your own unique transition situation. Let's make this conversational. So, Melody, let's speak on the topic of life coaching, career coaching. Um, a lot of people, just as the flip side of people discounting your story when it comes to life coaching or executive or career coaching, what I've also gotten is it's only for C-suite, high-level management professionals that utilize the service of a coach. How would you say life coaching should be in that strategy for a six-figure job? What would you say to? What would you speak about life coaching for anyone's professional transition strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think life coaching and speaking with a coach is amazing. Like I said, I spoke with Banga and he completely like changed my trajectory and just changed the way that I thought about applying for jobs. And I thought I was doing everything right, but after speaking with him and going to his workshops, I realized there's little tweaks and changes that you can make that would make a huge difference. And so for me, he talked about within HR, are you using the right words? Or if you want to present yourself as a subject matter expert, what are you doing to present yourself as a subject matter expert? There's lots of opportunities. Are you using LinkedIn till its fullest capabilities? And so when he said that to me, I was like, oh, you're right. I need to start interacting more and engaging more. You can start creating articles and making sure that people are noticing you. I think for me too, I enjoy so many different things. When I first started looking, I was like, do I go HR? Do I go to recruiting? Or do I go to all of these different things? Because I'm the type of person where I like a change and I like to have different tasks all the time. And so he helped me kind of narrow in and say, hey, you can still do HR. And I ended up landing in HR consulting, which was perfect because I was able to do all the things that I loved all at once. I work with recruiting, I work with VPs, I work with strategy, I work with branding in HR, I work with branding. And so you just have to figure out what works for you. Talking to Banga helped me out a lot. And so I'd highly recommend, if it's not him, definitely go to a coach.
I tell my story all the time, and I talk about how one session with my coach slash mentor changed my life. For those who are not familiar or who have not heard that story before, was just as Melody described. I was at the crossroads career-wise, and there's something called opportunity paradox. And the way I say it is the multi-talented is the most conflicted because he or she has a ton of opportunity, and that could also be almost a state of confusion. You don't even know what to do, and it's overwhelming, not because you're not skillful or you're not talented. As a matter of fact, it's because you are. Now you have a ton of opportunity to really narrow it down to say this is one thing I stand for, which is what branding is all about, becomes very difficult. So the crossroads I was should I go nonprofit or should I go for profit? And what happened to me was I found this mentor, this life coach, And in our very first coaching session, when I told my story, I talked about my passion, I talked about my accomplishment. She had reviewed all those things before I went in for the session. And she said that if you want to make money and you want to help people, you are a social entrepreneur. So just like Melody, like this called certain thing called blind spot for a reason because we don't see them. I never heard the word social entrepreneur before. 6 months after that conversation, the corporation of Microsoft started to invest into social entrepreneurship and applied for this business plan competition. Again, I didn't even know the name of the business plan competition, so I would not have applied because I didn't even know what social entrepreneurship is. What this coach did, and I think the power of life coaches is they help us with language, and language help us to do the right articulation, and it's the articulation that results into manifestation. So the language she provided for me was social entrepreneurship. I'm a social entrepreneur. And I applied for that competition. I was successful. I joined the United Nations. I came to America, established a bunch of social enterprises, and now I do the very same work of helping people with the right language to architect their own personal brand. So really life coaching changed. It really, really, really changed my life. And for anyone out there, I really encourage you to enlist the services of a life coach as part of the overarching strategy, for your six-figure, whether it's low six-figure or high-level six-figure, strategy. It's very key. That is what I do. I believe in it. It changed my life. And as you heard Melody's story as well, the power of a coach. One of the best definition I've heard about was a coach or life coach. It said a life coach is someone who sees in you what you don't see in yourself, and they have the power to bring it out of you. I really like that. And what they do is that is already with you. For me, was helping me with the right language, and that it's really what changed. So in my book, I there's a chapter about changing the narrative, and I show before and after of the people that I've worked with, the language they were using before their breakthrough, and the instant they adjusted that language and make a few little tweak, what happened to them. For some people, instantly. Melody's case happens to be a couple of weeks. How she did that. In my own transition was 6 months. It took me 6 months before that life-changing opportunity happened. But when that opportunity happened, I already have the right language to use, and that really turned everything around. So just to do a recap, so we started by talking about the power of telling one story and documenting the key moments in our narrative, in our story, the peak moments, the low moments, taking inventory of the defining moments of our story, utilizing keywords, utilizing the services of a life coach. So how about we speak to personal branding? Because all of this is leading towards personal branding. So you have been able to create this brand as an HR expert, and HR for you encompasses branding, technology, and all of that, human resources, training, development, and learning, and that position you as a subject expert. So what tips or insight do you have for people about building their personal brand? And how can even that help them to get six-figure opportunities?
Personal branding is what helps you get the positions that you apply for. It helps you stand out amongst the crowd. So my advice is really hone in on your specialty and hone in on those things that make you different from everybody else, and hone in on those things that you're passionate about and that you love, because you can intertwine all of those pieces, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and take those, and like Banga said, sometimes you just have to use the right words or the right keywords in order to create who you are and who your brand is. And from there, it's the vocabulary, it's the keywords, it's how you present yourself and how you show up. And branding isn't always just social media too, but it's day to day. My philosophy now is that the best jobs that I've gotten aren't always the jobs that I apply to, but it's the ones that people contact me for. All of my greatest opportunities weren't jobs that I applied for. I didn't apply for Hilton, they contacted me. The program that I'm in now, I didn't apply for. Someone contacted me for that as well. And so you want to make sure that your brand is imminent throughout your lifestyle, throughout social media, and throughout your day-to-day life. You want to make sure that your character stands out, or what you believe in stands out, or your hard work stands out. Because at the end of the day, your brand or your LinkedIn, it's going to get you in the door, but that's not what's going to keep you there. What's going to keep you there is the hard work that you have, the determination that you have to be successful. So you want to make sure that all of those things are also a part of your brand and a part of who you are.
Wow. You know what I like, what I really love what you said, and the way how I heard it, it's not about who you know, it's who knows you. It's not about who you the call, or who is calling you, and what personal branding does, it allows the right people to know you, and it allows the right persons or people to call you. I love that. I really love that. And when I look into my own life as well, like the greatest life-changing opportunities came to me, I didn't go to them. And because I have consistently projected and delivered and expressed my brand or my message as a subject expert in this particular one area. So really, I think a lot of people struggle with this idea of clarity, of saying like, how exactly am I going to position myself? I wrote about that. I really encourage people on the line, if you can get the book, Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story and Defining Your Identity, went through a few, yay!
I have my book.
That's amazing, and thanks for showing that. Yeah, so there's like resources there to help articulate your personal brand. There are questions in the book that you would ask yourself that really help to give this brand new insights to how do I synthesize my many skills, my many passion, my many interests, and how do I tell a cohesive story? How do I make my brand cohesive? The challenge for most millennials and even this day is because we have technology, we have all these tools, the barriers that the previous generation had of reaching the decision makers, we don't have those barriers anymore. We can go to LinkedIn and we can reach any executive in the world. We can use technology to break down any wall, whether it is business or political, whatever it is. But the problem with that is that gives us enormous burden to really make our story and our messaging cohesive. And you all know people in your network. Today, they are the life coach. Tomorrow, they are the technology person. Next tomorrow, they are Mary Kay. And next week, they are life insurance. and there's all these things coming around. So I think it's really important. What I say is you have to find your core. Another thing I say is that if you start taking your personal brand serious, one of the thought process that would help you out with this, that you are not what you do. What you do is an expression of who you are. For me, that was the greatest liberation and breakthrough that I got. So, again, my story, I had this defining moment. My life coach told me that you are a social entrepreneur. I got my dream job. I got my dream up. Mine was business. I got my dream opportunity. I started traveling the world. And Melody, that became my identity. I couldn't deliver myself from this identity that has really taken on, who I am. And I was wrestling that I know there has to be more than this. And so when I came to that thought process that, okay, that is good, but it's not just who I am, it's a component of who am I. For me, that was the greatest breakthrough that I have. And it's more like thinking in the thought process of an entrepreneur will relate with this. You can either work in your business or you can work on your business. What any executive coach would tell you is to get you out of working in the business so you can have this panoramic view over your business. The same thing applies to yourself. What personal branding does, it makes you the business. So whether you are a life coach, whether you are HR expert like Melody, or whether you are a storyteller like myself, all of those are derivatives, products, and services in your corporation. Your first and last name, your name is the brand. The challenge now is, what do you want the world to associate with that name? And I think that process started leading us in the direction of values, of our passion, of our purpose, of our mission statements, of our talent, of our core skills. Those things that no one else can do like we do starts to shape our brand. So really for anyone, I don't think anyone should go into 2019 without defining their personal brand. I don't think so. And I also want Melody to speak more to this. So Melody, I was at, and I wrote in the book, I don't know if you read that particular place. I was in New York, and I was in the Wall Street area, and I was fascinated. I was leading this session, for very high finance professionals, and just name it, they were all in the room. Wealth managers, venture capitals, foundations, just name it, all in the room. And I did a tell your story session. And you would never believe that people at that level could also struggle with this. And in the book, I talked about these 4 quadrants for shaping your personal brand or professional identity that you would by default fall in one of those categories. So the first quadrant, it's the professional. The second quadrant is the entrepreneur. The third is the industry leader. And the fourth is the thought leader. And I'm not sure when we came to the seminar if we did that exercise, and I often would do that exercise. And I asked the people to identify, and I couldn't get one person to identify as a thought leader in the room. About 1 or 2 people, when people, you're not too sure of the answer and you try to do something like this, like when they're younger in classrooms. and I was like, okay, but the point I'm trying to make is this. Even at that level of profession, the caliber of the people in the room, you would think most of them will identify as a thought leader or even thinking about building their personal brand. So I challenged the thought process and said, well, you would have to give yourself permission to define your personal brand. That is not a power any one of us should give away, particularly going into 2019. Go to YouTube. They're like infants born yesterday, literally.
Oh, yeah. The little boy who's making $4 million.
Yeah, like they're like kids.
He's a thought leader for toys, and he's 4, making millions.
I heard that this I think it was
Yes.
that was like unboxes toys and
Mm-hmm.
combinations like so I think like no one should go into 2019 without the ownership of their personal brand, because whether you like it or not, your personal brand exists, but are you owning it? And the way I describe that is, think about it like real estate. There are two options you have in real estate. You can either rent or you can either own. If you rent, you don't have home equity. If you own, as you pay mortgage, you grow on home equity. And the equity is where the wealth is. Without you defining your personal brand, you just giving all your wealth away. You're not gaining equity. And it exists, it's just leaving it on the table. So I think the priority for every single one on this call is to be serious on a personal brand. So back to New York, after that exercise, this woman walked up to me. She must be in her 60s or late 50s, and she was emotional. And there might be tears, and it was emotional for me to having the conversation. And she said, Benga, no one ever told me that I can have my personal brand in an organization, that I thought is something I do after I retire, that no one ever told me that. And she spent about over 20 years in that organization without any concept of the fact that she can create her own personal brand. I want you to speak more on this personal brand, how this is very important. And as a matter of fact, how that even help us, because some people think it's either I have it and I can't take it to the workplace, and
Oh no, you want to create it in the workplace. And kind of what you said made me think. I actually had a PR background. I went to college for PR. And it made me think of when a story comes out or when a tragedy or some type of event happens. They always say that you want to control the message, because if you don't control the message, the media will control it for you. And we know through all sorts of scandals, once the media gets a hold of something, it morphs into this big thing. But if you take your message and you come out and you present it how you want to present it, they have no choice but to use your message. And so personal brand works the same way, whereas you want to come out and own your message, because if you don't, someone else is going to own it for you, whether it's your employer or whether it's people looking at your resume or your LinkedIn, or you not even being able to get the dream job that you want. Someone else is gonna own it, or they're gonna think something of you that you don't want them to think of you. So definitely own your brand. And as it relates to the workplace, again, having a personal brand is really important. Like we both talked about, the best opportunities are the opportunities sometimes that you don't apply for. They're just imminent. I worked with someone in my previous role, and she was excellent in PowerPoint. She was so good at PowerPoint. She could take a PowerPoint and touch it, and it was like magic. And being in consulting, all we do is a lot of decks. And so anytime somebody had a big presentation for the executive, they always sent it to her so that she could go over it and she could add her tweak. And that was her personal brand. Was she was amazing at communication, and she was amazing at PowerPoint. And so she created a niche for herself, and she made it so that people valued her for a particular thing, and that she was always a resource. Anytime somebody needed a PowerPoint deck or needed advice, she was the go-to. And so that's how you want to show up in your workplace, is you want to find something or some area where that you are that go-to person. And that's also going to create job security for you, and it's going to create value for you as well.
wow. Well, friends, ladies, gentlemen, you heard it. I need you all to go to banger.org, and you can get the book, Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story and Defining Your Identity. That is the book. It's really going to help you to shape your brand for 2019. Another point I wanted to mention in terms of resources is that starting in January, I am leading a masterclass. It's called Story Intensive. Tell Your Story Intensive. It's a 5 weeks masterclass that taking a group of people in a coaching program to really help articulate this new story that would help build and launch out their personal brand. So I really want to give a little bit of introduction for those who might not have heard of this program. The Story Coaching Intensive is not a book writing, a fictional writing workshop. No, it is how to use your story as the blueprint for your business and professional opportunities, and how to use the story to architect your personal brand. In the course of the program, we really have a monetization day that you actually go out to the marketplace and go monetize your story and come back with opportunities that you've created. At the end of the program, everyone is going to be able to say, this is my story, this is my personal brand, and this is how I'm monetizing the story. So once you go to benga.org, go events, or you go to the website and on the menu click events, you can go and learn more about the Story Coaching Intensive. I want to have the opportunity to work with you and help tell this new story and how to monetize the story for 6-figure opportunities. Before we close out, I want Melody to give us some insight and as well to tell us how the audience can connect with her.
Yeah, the best way is LinkedIn. We just talked about LinkedIn, but search me on LinkedIn, Melody Bearfield. You can connect with me there. Send me a message if you have some questions. I'll be happy to connect with you guys.
Great. Well, I don't want to keep us longer. Thank you very much for tuning in. We are going to be back next week, Thursday. We're going to have Haiti Fitzpatrick from Voice of America, and we're going to be talking about how to tell your story to the media. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be a wonderful time. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's stay connected, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the program. Bye. And thank you, Melody, for.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.